whatever milestones that Black people make against hate, it ends up benefiting all the other people of color. I can't see what his end game is. The Republican Party is the party of racism, is the party of white supremacy, is the party of hate. This is wrong, and it needs to stop.
Everybody wants to go back and drag that piece of history up, but they don't want to go back and deal with what their ancestors did to the indigenous people and to Black people in this country. You got to go. And you got billionaires talking about going to space and Jeff Bezos. Go! Never come back. I hope you get lost. This man has lost his mind.
Boom! Come on, girlfriend. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team in 2022 and 2021, reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Welcome. We're broadcasting live on February 26th. Black History Month is almost over. Okay, so we'll see what happens going forward from that. But the reason why I'm here is 2/3 of the reason why I'm here is because of these wonderful ladies who you know and love. Aisha K. Saggers, Jill D. Jones. Gracias, ladies. How are
Hello.
we?
Good.
What's going on?
Rain, and snow.
Well, I thought, no, I was going to say, it never snows in Southern California.
Yeah.
I mean, it always, I'd have to say that in the northern part of California is where you'll primarily see a lot of snow because you're closer to the mountains, and California has everything. I love that it snowed. Our problem is that the infrastructure just is never prepared for the fallout from the beaches, the mountain, the mudslides. They build houses so weird here. So they're going to really need to reassess a lot here, because I don't think this is going to be a one-off. I think we'll have this a lot now. We needed the rain, guys. We did. We really do need this rain, the water.
Yeah. But with climate change, those kinds of events are going to happen more often in places that we don't normally expect them to. And so states really do need to bulk up their infrastructure. I mean, you look at the South. The South is like one day it's snowing, the next day it's 80 degrees, but they still don't have the infrastructure to take care of the snow.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. Don't we remember a time many years ago that people were poo-pooing climate change?
They still are in this country.
What more proof do they need?
Because they say, well, it's clearly not global warming because it's not hot. So you have like why everybody had to kind of change the verbiage to the jargon to climate change is because every numbskull in America, now we know there aren't very many smart people here. You have to adjust and dumb everything down so they kind of understand. These are the people who are okay with a spork.
Right. Meanwhile, Antarctica is melting.
Yes. I heard
and
about
so
that.
With that, the rising sea levels. That's why we know those buildings in Florida were doomed and destined to fall. With the governor that they have, I hope they get themselves together with reassurances and reinforcement. Because as you can see what just happened in Turkey, they are charging all those people for the lack of safety in their buildings.
Yes.
So if only America was a country of justice, we would be doing the same things. But there's no justice in America. So I don't think that'll ever happen. People will live
Taylor Greene gets her way.
Like in the Depression, like back in the hovels and the holes and the ghettos.
No, but if Marjorie Taylor Greene gets her way, they're going to take all of them. They're going to leave, and then they can't fix it because where are they going to get the money from? The blue states
she's
are
a construction bonehead. She's a person who knows how to steal money like that. She knows. She knows how to do that.
But remember the last time that those so-called red states did that, it spelled financial collapse that they still, how many hundreds of years later, have not recovered from.
They don't hold contractors accountable for the work that they do in America. They don't hold a lot of people accountable for things. You know, it's so funny, our iPhone, I was upset about the fact that when they took away that other little plug with the little circle where you could do, in Europe, they couldn't do it. Oh, wow. Not allowed, because it created a monopoly that you could only use their products. It was not allowed. You know, Europe has some privacy things and some stuff that they just don't allow. And we definitely know there's people who are working and really, and I really think it's because because Europe is so old. It's been through a lot. America's young, and it's just like a hustler. This country was never built for people to live. It was here for people to exploit. I now have seen the light on that. It was never being devised. It was just I always say it was. It was. They've done everything to America, and really, like, you know, I mean, we're in a really bad way. So when they say people are flying over in balloons and whatever, I'm like, we've done nothing to take care of our planet. So why are people pretending like they care? Such a mess.
Well, and let's be clear about those balloons, though. The only reason that we really are like seeing a whole bunch of them because people now have like camera phones and can see and catch it on their camera phone and take pictures. Not like they weren't there before.
I think they were trying to figure out, can we bring solidarity? Is there one place where everybody would have unity? And it was no. Because then you had people like going, they killed the aliens. You know? And then you're like, oh my God, you know, you guys are more upset about this than a gender reveal party where everybody's dyed the pigeons pink and they've all the animals have died. And America has delayed reaction. 3 weeks ago, East Palestine happened. And we talked about it first. We were one of the first. Nobody was talking about it. Hardly anybody knew. And now all of a sudden, oh, it's just terrible about those animals. Yeah, you know, that on the day that we were talking about it. And it took everybody 3 weeks to get it together. So miss me with the concern. These faux politicians are disgusting. They're all.
Jill, since you're the phone expert, I've had my phone for 3 years, and today I dropped it and the screen cracked.
Oh, you didn't have one of those solid protector things.
I should have put one on it, but I've heard divided on. I've seen online people say some say you should have it, some say you shouldn't. So I went to my phone guy, and he said it would cost $120 to replace the screen. So what he did is he just put one of those screen protectors. He said, as long as it works, just go with it.
It's fine.
Is that an iPhone that survived?
No, it's an older Samsung.
I mean, they want you to keep.
I have a Samsung too.
It's better to have that little plastic thing on top. I tell you, I am not really into buying new phones all the time because Apple slows your stuff down after you've paid it off. Even though they've been fined 1 million times, they keep doing it. It's like Wells Fargo. They keep stealing from people and hustling them on the street like some old rolling you like a drunk. And they're still in business.
Does the same thing too, because after a while with the
they want you to buy another one.
They won't charge. They won't hold a charge, so you end up having to buy a new one. Like I have the A20, and this I think is like 3 years old.
Mine is 3 years old.
But I have the case. I have a case and a protector on it because I am clumsy and I do drop my phone.
It was so bugged. I was coming out of my car and it dropped onto the metal part of the, like when you're coming out of the door, they have that metal thing. Yeah. And I think that's on it. And I just said, okay. So when I came home, I went, and I am not a person. I have never bought a brand new phone in my life, and I refuse to buy a brand new phone because I think it's crookery.
It is. It's crazy. I also think the love for buying a new phone has gone down a lot. When we're not teenagers anymore, and I don't really think that everybody is all crazy about it. Look at the ads they make now. They're not even that expensive what they're doing. It's like they know. So now they just get you with accessories and service charges, and it's always like repeat things. That's the only way they make money.
Absolutely.
Ain't nobody trying to break their neck for a 2,000 unless it's the top 85 people in the world. that Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank was raving about it.
Kevin O'Leary.
I hate him. I absolutely.
Why did I know that would be your feelings?
He's the reason I don't even watch the show. I won't. He is the most disgusting human being alive. He sat up there and said 85 people. The woman was like, "There's 85 people in the top of the elites and bloop-de-bloop." And he goes, "Good. It keeps everybody competitive and wanting to strive." What is up with if people don't shop, we don't live, I guess. The planet just can't make it if people don't. But they don't want to they can't bury their stuff to get rid of it, throw it away. You can't. So how much stuff do people need? I mean, I saw somebody on somebody's page talking about what Beyonce needed to do to make as much money as Rihanna with her marketing and all of this stuff. And I'm like, why are you all always trying to get our Black folks, to shop?
But you
got money. You don't need another lipstick. You don't need another dumb outfit.
I gotta find it. There was a study done. I don't know if I've mentioned it on this platform before. A few years ago by AC Nielsen, which is probably the top research firm other than Pew Research in America, and it showed, and this is a recent, that Black Americans are influenced to buy things by their stars or influencers more than any other culture.
Taking all our money so we can't even buy a house. It's like, why should we make Beyonce even more rich or Fenty or what? Why? People need to save their money. You don't need to worry about your skin because that's the one thing. Black women don't need to be doing Botox. For real, they don't need it. They don't even need BBLs. Should have been ahead of the game on that. But why is the investment on this? Because you see all these people on the Real Housewives and all this stuff. And then later on, you find out, she couldn't keep up with it. She has no money. She's broke. All
the houses were rented.
To make everybody go out and try to live a lifestyle that's not even pragmatic. Get over it. I just hate this greed and this, this decadence in our community. It's like we never were those kind of people. And why are we adopting white people's behavior of this greed, of this consumption? That's not something from everybody. Always had a solid grandparent in their family who talked to you about money and what you needed to be doing. What the on? They don't. And besides, white folks don't even want to give us what we need in this country anymore. So what are we doing? And I think that the girls have their billions of dollars and we don't need to keep buying shades of lipstick. Young women don't have to. Hair care.
Jill, you did this post probably a year ago, just real quick. You did this post probably a year ago about the lessons that your grandparents tried to teach you about money, and you didn't listen to it until it was much later. And I think that we have a consumer culture, but a lot of people spend more time trying to figure out how they're going to buy certain things versus how much time they spend looking at their 401k and how they should invest it.
Yeah, every person and every African American in this country should have a passport, have a packed suitcase underneath their bed, ready to go, and should, basically have enough money to buy a plane ticket somewhere else. That is just a requirement. I'm sorry. It is just something that you should strive for with your grandchildren, your children, your everybody. That is something that just must be that we have as lessons to each other. It just is. It's very terrible. And
let's get into it. Before we do, Let's see. Black Beauty says, happy Sunday, family.
Mm,
Cinnamon Canella says, yep, Turkey is shaking things up in a good way. Some building
amazing.
just became dust.
Yes.
And then Cinnamon goes, cell phones are like paying rent. For me, Motorola works excellent and I drop it constantly.
Oh, wow. I used to love Motorola. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a time they were like, there was a time that Motorola and, oh, what's the name of the company were the top two in cell phones? Oh, it's a Swedish company. Why am I forgetting?
Nokia?
Nokia, yes.
Yeah.
Nokia and Motorola were all it. So,
and then we got our
there we
Blackberries, and they killed Blackberry. I love my Blackberry.
I did too.
Blackberries were the best. They were the best.
Yeah, they really
Yeah,
were.
I miss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this comment up, Jill. You can respond to it. Kyle Vin in the CV says, first time doing black folks need a suitcase and a passport at the ready. Why?
Just do. You do. It's something that even my Jewish side of a family, same thing. It is just something that you are taught from a very young age. You are on the move, and you could potentially be on the move quickly because you can't. And if you look at the signs around in this, how we're living, yes, you do need that. And you always need, just like with your evacuation plan for earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, you need one too about what would happen when this thing flips. There's nobody protecting African Americans' rights in this country. You're under the premise right now that they are. Everything seems to be functioning, but it's very concerning to me because on a dime, and the leaders that they think are standing there and whatever could be pulled aside and taken away just like that. With the way the leadership transitioned with a Marjorie Taylor Greene going into certain roles, that to me was disturbing, that there is nobody minding. And we're that. Please, I just implore people, do that.
I agree. If they can take away Roe, they can easily take away the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment Civil Rights Act of 64. They've already scalped the Voting Rights Act of 65. So when things like that happen, we are among the people who are most likely to be impacted by some of that. And none of us are trying to go back into slavery.
And the interesting thing was, if you remember, even in the Ukraine war, what people should take from the part where they saw the African kids who couldn't get out, that part is the reason why. It's that part. You don't wait around until you try to stay as close to keep your ears close to the ground, but that part, because that will be why Black people will not be able to get out of here.
Okay. All right. So we haven't even started our conversation night. It's already fire. So let's get down to it. Our first conversation topic. The 1-year anniversary of the Russian-Ukraine war. It's been a year, man.
Yeah, it's been a year. And Ukraine has really fought very hard. What bothers me is how our country has reacted to not just the war. There's the giving of the money that people are reacting to. Keep in mind, if something were to go down here, we would want our allies to come and take care of us. Remember, we did ask our allies to go to war for us in Afghanistan and Iraq. So keep that in mind. But also, too, the way that you have certain people, particularly in one political party, siding with Russia. This was the party that hated Russia because of the communism, and now they can't give Putin enough praise. Well, this goes back to what you said. Things can flip on a dime. That flip, and to be perfectly honest, it has absolutely nothing to do with Russia being right. It has nothing to do with Putin. It has nothing to do with support of communism. It's just they want to be against whatever the left is for. That's the only reason. And so they're supporting a dictator. They're buying into his rhetoric and his propaganda, and then they are putting it out to American people. It's insane.
Yeah. I have a lot of mixed emotions, because I think that Aisha's right about how people have been reacting here. And I've tried to understand, like, I think they're doing a poor job at this point of conveying what the strategy is at this point. And what happens when that happens with the messaging is that fatigue sets in, rumors, conjecture. Everybody starts saying $2 billion. We could have done this. Well, we've had $2 billion and we still have homeless people sleeping on the side of a freeway all over through America. It's not just New York and LA and all of this. This is the part of America and its personal sins and its ability to live with its worst self has been going on longer than the Ukrainian war. America's quite good at living with its despicable nature and the people that it has manifested, and the youth and the parents and the races that have evolved from just the sewage of just filth and horrible human beings. So 2 billion for them, considering, what does that really mean anyway? I mean, okay, we have more money coming out, this is going here, but these people are getting rich and this one will happen, and we can all sit around and twiddle our thumbs. But the main fact is American people don't care. The most of them don't. They didn't care about the pandemic. They didn't care about people dying. It's a despicable nation full of really people who live here. They don't give a shit. They don't care that old ladies are being raped. They don't care. They don't care that people literally raped 90-year-old grannies, trained them. That was in the German press. That was all stuff my husband was showing me. We were reading together. But Americans, they don't. Vietnam either. Life magazine was the barometer for Americans to look up and go, oh my God. But we're going to have a nice tea party and look like Jackie O and all this, whatever they were talking about. This nation has the karma of the most sinful nature. So I expect nothing more from the savages that never evolved living here. And they're savage people who came here. You know, I had a relative I found on who left Ireland and came here. We saw him in the family tree. Away from fighting. These were the types that came here, by the way. I also just think that we are just expecting too much out of the American people. They don't got it. But really, they don't have it. And I wake up every single day and think that I'm so much better than most of the people who are here in America. And my friends, we're better than these creatures that walk around every single day. I'm better than them.
I want to talk about this war. That did anyone expect it to go on for this long?
Yes, because America can only make money. They can only make money unless there's a war. You see, these in the whole world, all of them, in all the countries, have not figured out how to make money with peace. They can only do it with war. They can't do it. They can't do with love, peace, and happiness because they've got to kill a ratio in a certain amount of people. They can't do it. We've come so not far at all. We're still having wars. It's disgusting. So when they talk about, like, people are like going, oh my God, Putin's going to nuke us and this one's going to, do you really? Honestly, why? Why do you care? You don't give a shit about anybody else on the planet. So what would be so bad about that? Really, at this point, look at what we've done to the planet. It's dying anyway. So is that what you're afraid of? I grew up in a time where they had us believing we could hide under get away from it. It's the Cold War again. It just found a way to go back into a circle. And when that happens and you look at how it rotates again, it's the same old formula. They just found new faces for it. And they brought a troglodyte woman with blonde hair. Y'all need to watch out. That stupid Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's going to be a real beast. And like I said, the day she became legitimized was the day I knew that African American people have a very slim future in this country.
Aisha, what are your
It's
thoughts
grim.
about Russia and all this whole war?
Well, I mean, my thinking is I didn't think that it was going to end soon, because Vladimir Putin seems like on fighting this to his last day. Okay, that was the first thing. But I think what bothers me in terms of how Americans view this, people are like, oh, it's $2 billion. Let's be very clear. It's not actually $2 billion that we're just, drafting into their bank account, their national bank account. This is what the weaponry and all the other kind of military assistance is valued at. It's not like,
and we're paying ourselves, actually. Funny enough,
which
when
is
they balance,
idiotic.
right?
And I'll be perfectly frank, because for American discussion, we've not only talked about the Russia part, but also too got to keep an eye on China in as all this is going on, and how Putin and Russia is kind of catering to China. You got Nikki Haley on one hand over here talking about we need to stop giving money to our enemies like China. Nikki, if we stop, they will call in all of our loans, and this country
Well,
will
they
fall
also need
apart.
to question her allegiance to India, because the reality is that they ain't too swift either and liking us very much. The India power brokers there don't really care for America either. They see nothing but to bring us down. But the problem is, there's so much corruption in all of these countries. It's so funny. They're laughing the fact that, oh, here's the great America. You're as corrupt as all of us. They love it. But also China has definitely been playing cat and mouse because of sending whatever they've been sending around here. Those are little games. Also, they should not forget, we had that flying thing here of somebody who had one of those things that are in Dubai where their army flies with the jetpack on them. So we have had a dummy flying on a jetpack around here for a while. They don't know where it's coming from. And it's stuff like that, which is like the fact that there's so many unsolvable things that our FBI can't fix, doesn't know, But all I can tell you is they never solved who really killed JFK, like what was really all behind that. And I don't think they'll ever fix anything here in this nation. Also, we're writing ourselves that check with $2 billion. It's our equipment. It's our everything. That's once they balance the book, it balances back out. They owe us. So yeah, 2 billion, but we definitely get it back.
Yeah. And the thing too with Russia, Russia is they've invaded Ukraine, but them and China are going to do these little military drills in South Africa. Tell me that that's not an invasion. South Africa is not welcoming them in and say, hey, come here. That's one of the reasons why we have to be very supportive of Ukraine. We have to be very careful, because if Russia and China can go to South Africa and decide, oh, we're going to do our drills here, if they are working together, they're trying to conquer a lot of other places. And, we have to protect our country. And so we protect our country by supporting people that we can call on later. And again, a lot of Americans don't understand foreign policy. They think they've got a very antiquated view of it. Many people never studied it, even when you were doing studying different civilizations and things like that in history. Nobody paid attention. So for Americans who are sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, we support Russia," and you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about foreign policy. You don't even know how our government works. You don't watch the United Nations. And so I can't really respect these people and their viewpoints on this particular war and about Russia.
Mm. 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 So what do you, but there's so many people that have died. It's just
they don't care. They don't care. Like I said, nobody cares. They don't really give. Like after COVID, people were primed up to just see bodies stacked everywhere and then say, that's not true. That's the other problem we have with American dimwits.
I mean, I think that going back to Jill's point about people not caring, I mean, you know,
they don't care.
We shouldn't expect people in this. We shouldn't really expect that people would care in this country about what's going on in other countries when they don't even care after, you know, little kids are shot in their school.
They don't care. The coldest, that's what exactly, Aisha. That is the whole thing. So why are we going to even pretend any of that? They need to change the national anthem too. They need to change it to "We are the most in the world, and we will kill you at any cost because we don't get the greatest and we're the most powerful. And most of our people here are racist, you know, degenerates, and we are going to take it all back." That's the national anthem that should be America's.
So let me put some comments here. Black Beauty is saying, after all, America's made profit off the back of slavery and under capitalism used their slaves as collateral to get loans. So it's no surprise that many are in support of Russia, racism, etc. Cinnamon Canella says, excuse me, China is working very hard in Latin America. Lots of dark business happening for years now, and USA is not paying attention. Won't even go to about Africa, but that's a whole other conversation piece. Do we see the war continuing at least for another year?
Yeah,
it could go for 10 years.
Yeah, honestly, put it this way: Americans thought that they were going to go in Afghanistan and get out. It took 20 some odd years.
Yeah, I know. This is a really incredible, this war that's going on is actually like they said it would be in the future, of just sitting behind a desk and being taken care of. You know, that's why so many other foreign countries like Germany, France, they actually dwindled down their military. However, that is changing and they're starting to ramp them. They are requesting in their Congresses to start bringing back their mandatory draft things again, which is not sitting well with many people.
So Aisha, you're saying in a year's time, we're going to be still talking about this war?
Yeah. Like I said, George W. Bush came back how many months later and said mission accomplished, and the war continued for another 20 years. So I look at it this way. This is something that Putin wanted to do. He's trying to figure out how to do it. He was planning and preparing for it for a long time. So he's in there for the long haul. And as we talked about on this show many, many times in the past, is that it's kind of like this is like his last hurrah. Like this man isn't well because of some reporting. So I don't think that he feels he has anything to lose by not continuing.
Will this become a really hot topic for the next presidential election if the war goes on?
Well, something big always has to happen.
I mean, yeah, they're trying to make it, especially on the right, they're trying to make it a hot topic, particularly on the financial issue, and they're trying to seize on the financial issue. But again, that's the party that wanted to pull us out of NATO. Okay, well, they did pull us out. So, I mean, yeah, it'll become a topic for the wrong reasons and with the wrong people and the wrong message getting pushed forward, and our media won't do anything to stop it.
Wow. Well, I just think about how many lives have been lost continuously. It's just like, it's just really, really bad. But I agree. I do agree with you both. I think Putin's in for the long haul. He ain't moving.
And we're not moving either, because remember, there's logistics about Ukraine, and
Yes.
it is in between China, and there's just some real interesting, there's logistics about it. Just like Somalia is a real hot, crazy place, you know,
Right.
and near the Sudan, that is all about, you know, the Middle East. So, and having proximity. So yeah, it's, if you sit and can't ever figure out why something's going on, it's usually logistics and having access because there's something else going on.
Right.
Follow them. Yeah, there's always another game.
Yeah, it's like it's shadows. Like there's the shadow world going on. And
Yep.
I'm not trying to say in conspiracy, but there's only so much. They can't be that transparent with people because, you know, it doesn't really work. People have this crazy lenticular belief system that that's how it's supposed to be, like a 3D object, that they can see everything. But, you know, they understand the clouds when they see how they go 3D sometimes. So no, you can't do that when you're running governments because everybody doesn't get along.
Right. And this is this war. The war is fairly recent, but Putin's desire to take over Ukraine is not.
What I found really disturbing for me is lately seeing all these like Arab men in Africa giving Black people advice, like you need to get your resources together and you're this and you're that. And everybody's online going, yeah, they're so right. Yeah, yo. It's like, yo, everybody, these Arab people still have Black slaves. And there are certain regions where they still go and round them up in nets. Like, no joke, no lie. Let's stop pretending that there's a brotherhood there just because of Islam. There's not. They see themselves as so much higher. And the minute that African nations start pulling away from all of them, they will take every bit of money that they can to invade or attack or kill or cause a coup or whatever they can. That to me is disturbing. Russia does the same thing. Russia, in December, we know that Russia sent in a ton of mercenaries into Somalia just to stir up stuff. But its proximity is through the Silk Trade, you know, that road, and Syria and all of that. So, you know, all is not what it ever seems.
Okay. Let's move on to our next conversation piece. Aisha did a great conversation with a gentleman named Ernest Owens, who I interviewed Ernest Owens, I think when he was 17 years old.
Oh
wow.
Yes, but yes, 17 years old. I'm going to look in my archives while we're conversing, but I interviewed him when he's 17, long before he became into pen and all that, like long before that. So Aisha, tell us about this conversation you had with Ernest Owens.
Well, you know, I still a lot because I used to do reviews a lot of the time, but I do still do author interviews, musician interviews. And so his publicist contacted me, but I saw Ernest and I actually communicated over Twitter before, and I saw when his book came out. So when I saw the email from his publicist, I was like, yeah, I'd love to interview him and send me the book. So he sent me the book. This is the book, The Case for Cancel Culture, How This Democratic Tool Works to Liberate. So, you know, one of the things that they sent me in an email when we were doing the logistics was how Elon Musk responded to a Rolling Stone excerpt of the book. And the title of the piece that they published, they just called it The Case for Cancel Culture. So clearly Elon Musk did not read the article. He just jumped on this and got his feelings hurt and dude was pressed about this book. I read the book. It took me 2 days to read it. It's a very quick read. It's not an in your face kind of, you know, think this way. He explores the history of cancel culture. And, you know, he starts the book talking about the origin of cancel culture on Twitter, starting with Black Twitter in 2014, and an episode of love and hip hop, but even going to the word cancel or canceling someone, going back to New Jack City, the film New Jack City in 91, when Wesley Snipes' character says about the girlfriend, cancel a new one. And so people, what he said was that people had started using the canceling people to cancel people who were needed to be held accountable for things. We're talking about like canceling R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, people, people of that nature. And he personally came into contact with this cancel culture when he responded to something that Justin Timberlake said at following a NAACP BET Awards, I think it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But responded to a comment that Justin Timberlake made about a speech. And one of the things that he said was, wait, how are you saying this when you misappropriate Black culture, but then turn around and, try to dog our icons like Prince and Janet Jackson and the things that you said. And so Justin Timberlake had a little hissy fit on Twitter. His fans came for Ernest, but then what happens is 6 years later, he's having to apologize to Janet Jackson because of the pressure and because black people really were like, yeah, maybe we should cancel Justin Timberlake. So he talks about how cancel culture has there's a kind of slippery slope when it comes to how it's used, and that he talks about the history of it. He says we've always been canceling people from going back. The Boston Tea Party is an example he gave of it being, we canceled that. Civil rights movement. He talks about all of these things and how it has been used positively in American history to hold people accountable, to advance causes that were just, and that he talked about, and to right cultural wrongs, because that was the other piece of it. So he gives this rundown of all these ways that it's been used, but he also talks about that how we need to distinguish what cancel culture is because of the increase in cyberbullying and people saying, oh, well, it's because of cancel culture people are behaving this way. Well, that's not exactly what it is, but he really makes a point in terms of how
but that's white people's interpretation, as they do with what woke is. They end up turning it into.
And I mentioned that in the interview. Yeah,
because woke is like the new N word for them.
Right.
You can see how they're so chuffed to be saying all these woke people. You know what they're saying?
Right.
Just put
I remember
all
woke
these
being, I mentioned this because I remember woke being a form of greeting of departure between my father and his friends. It's like they would dap each other down and be like, stay woke and leave. It was a recognition of things. And so he talks specifically about how the left has used cancel culture to advance democracy, but the right has been using it disingenuously, really. And so it's a really, really good book, and he brings it all full circle. And I think anyone who's read this book, you come away with a different perspective and a different view of how it can be used positively. But Elon Musk started some crap, if you ask me, with his little tweet, because then what happened? Well, he essentially is like, oh, cancel culture is bad, 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 bad. But then tried to include to cancel this book. So a lot of his people were going on these book review sites like Goodreads, which is a very popular one, and trying to put forth these negative reviews about this book, clearly not having read it. And so I say all that to say that this book about cancel culture, the people who have issues with cancel culture and think, oh, cancel culture is bad, we shouldn't cancel anything, literally tried to cancel a book on cancel culture. And the interview with Ernest Owens was excellent. He was very, he really had a way of looking at this as something that is supposed to be to hold accountable for the, and yeah, it was a great
All right.
interview.
Well, and I just took a look back into my archives. The first time I interviewed Ernest Owens was February 20th, 2023, almost 10 years, or a little over 10 years ago to the day we're broadcasting today.
Wow.
Yeah, back then, it was an article he wrote called Beyonce Colorism and Why All This Needs to End in 2013. That was my that was my first conversation with him. So when I saw you were interviewing, I go, yeah. So it's like almost a full
circle. And he did get his Beyonce tickets, by the way, for this tour, because I did ask that question, because that was actually one of our first communications on Twitter.
That's a whole other conversation piece about that. It's a whole other conversation piece, but
yeah.
But kudos to that conversation, Aisha. Definitely, I'll share the link up again to our family here, whether you're watching it live on the replay, but certainly check out the conversation. Really good. That just shows you that, you know what? If you need to know how to interview, check out the lady in the glasses. And also Jill too, because Jill does interviews too, does magazine interviews. So, hey, they're not just columnists, they're also interviewers also. So
yeah, I had some really nice ones with Saul Williams and his better half, Anicia. So yeah, it was interesting.
Let me ask you, Aisha, what is a highlight for you during that conversation? What's one or two highlights for you?
Oh gosh, there were so many. I'm like looking back at my notes too. You know, I think it was the discussion that the echo chamber that derides cancel culture is so loud, and they fill this space with noise, and so common people who don't really pay attention and just have a cursory understanding, they don't understand what the original intent was of cancel culture. But the other part of it too, for me, that it wasn't during the interview, but it was once we finished the interview and I sat and I thought back about it, and I was thinking about that, and then I got to thinking about how woke has been misused and misappropriated, and I'm thinking, as Black people, we have to start doing a little bit better when it comes to gatekeeping certain parts of our culture, because once the mainstream takes it over, they redefine it and they repurpose it for something that was not what it was intended to do. And that becomes the new definition that sticks in people's heads. I cannot understand how, for example, people are like, oh, this is what woke is. This is what woke. No, it's not. And personally, I feel like, you know what? If you don't remember your parents using it, you shouldn't say it. But yeah, he made me think about that, and just how, how all of this unfolded, and how we have to do better at making sure these meanings that we attribute to certain phenomenon don't get rewritten for us and become the dominant meaning.
Jill, any thoughts you have
and that,
on the
look, the thing, it can be used for good again.
Jill, do you have any thoughts about the whole area of cancel culture?
For me, it's I don't really like to jump on all of these words. Every day there's a new trend, there's a new lingo and jargon. And, I'm 60 years old. I can't with it. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I can't personally keep subscribing to, all of this, because it's just out of my wheelhouse. The thing is, for me, nothing has changed. Nothing is new under the sun. Nothing. You can call it whatever. You can call it a peanut head. I don't care. It's just nothing is new. It's like cancel culture, whatever. In my old day, it was like, like I'm ignoring you or day. So you can call it whatever you want, but I believe that, you know, I believe when you don't have things like cancel culture or shaming people, that you run the risk of becoming completely amoral in your society. I think there needs to be a bar. But since we're at the point where everybody is able to wants to subscribe to anything and without even having any basic fundamental agreements that for all of us to live together, we're all going to follow these tenets here. We can't even do that anymore. That's a bit disturbing to me. That's a problem. We can't even come together and say, hey, so if we're all going to live together, then take your rocks. And I think that, give us the North and you guys can have the South. Clearly, just let it be done. Let thy will be done and move on and see, may the best man win. Because personally, a country without the sense of, and also these people who are determining to be the ones shaming. We also have a huge mental health problem in this country. There are rejects, and I'm sorry, a lot of mothers in the last generation raising their kids really sucked. They just were made wimpy sons, wimpy boys, barely pull their pants up. They're not men. They're little whiny little whingers. I'm sorry to sound like such a the truth. They just don't have it. They don't have it. Like that thing of that energy, charisma, that power, something inside. Even the women, lackluster. People are so unhappy with how they look, how they dress, what gender they are. Everybody's unhappy and they all want to change it. It's weird to me. It's just weird. This preoccupation with self. It's like, go do something. Go pick garbage up the beach. I mean, get the mind going. Get out of yourself. Kids and young people are too into, how do I look? What do I do? What do I do? It's unbelievable. You can't say that. I called a woman ugly on my page yesterday and got a reprimand from Instagram.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I said, you're ugly. And I meant ugly in the sense because she had been trolling me and on my page. And I was just like, you're ugly. You're an ugly person. I'm sorry, community guidelines removed the thing and we're not allowed to say anything. I was like, okay. These safe words. I'll tell you one thing, I'm not a safe bet out in the streets. You're going to hear the thing you don't want to hear. And here's another thing. I don't care about most people anymore. I hate to say it. Like, there's a part of me that almost feels like I shouldn't even do this show anymore because I really just don't like most of the people that I meet every day. There's so few people that are like, I enjoy you guys.
Thank you, darling.
But I will say that very few people, I like people less and less every day. And watching the news has not become one of them. They're all off of my phones. All of it's gone because I can't see any justice ever being served here for all the countless amount of hours I wasted watching MSNBC, watching ABC, whatever. For what? For this? I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm moving on with my life. I'm not watching it. I don't give a. I'll show up to vote, whatever, but I don't care anymore. I really don't care because my intuition tells me what's going to happen in this place, and it ain't good. It ain't good. So yank my chain no longer. I'm going to enjoy my life and live it, and I suggest everybody else do the same. The politics game is a dead end. It's never going to change, and the people who come in seem to just get worse and worse. Just more disgust than I've ever seen. I just can't believe it. They're just disgusting, and you don't know. You're wasting your life trying to fix it. So cancel culture, whatever jargon it is today, very simple.
And the thing that you described about with the woman making the complaint and on Instagram and everything like that, that is exactly what Ernest says in his book. is what people have been trying to claim is cancel culture. That's not cancel culture. That's people just being, nasty for no reason. That has nothing to do with holding people accountable. He's talking about holding people accountable for the.
He was mad about a
things that they
post
do.
about healthcare. It was people from all over Canada, Europe, who basically came online to say, America has the worst healthcare. And oh my God, they were shocked. They were telling them, so it was a video. And this one woman went ballistic, this one piggy, because she's not even nice. She's so horrible. I don't even want to call her a piggy. She's a freaking, spawn of something really ugly in this nation. And it's really true. They were there when I was growing up in school. It's those same old tired, unbelievable. And there she was. And I said, you're a really ugly person. Well, Instagram, community guidelines. I'm like, you take your community guidelines, y'all ain't, frankly.
All right.
Got desperate, thirsty. Everybody's, hi, buy this. And you know what? I woke up feeling really bad today. I think I'm going to have a shake. Oh, this shake. It's like, this is a. Because the reality is America can't provide for its people anymore. Jobs are gone. They're making their little coins, but everybody is a prostitute. It's really crazy. Even they got the dogs in berets and, kids like saying to be funny. And frankly, to be honest, it's taking away a lot of kids' innocence that adults don't even look at them like children anymore. They wonder why people are stealing. You've made them, you've adulted them to fit in with your concept of humor and all of it. That's gross. That's the John Bonet school of like really creepy. And yet it's happening. At the same time, you have people flipping out about, oh, these poor kids and pedophiles. All pedophiles sitting up there watching these kids like this. Take them offline and let them be kids. Because if I have to hear about Northwest posting something anymore on TikTok, I get notifications. I've been trying to figure out, why am I getting notifications? Are they paying for TikTok to let us all know? North and Kim just posted. I don't get it. And if I get another one again, I'm going to disconnect. It's like, really? What is this? That's the first thing they should have taken away of China. That TikTok should have been gone.
So the last thing I want people to leave with on this is that if you want to think about an appropriate way to use that, or how cancel culture has been used to advance democracy, and Ernest mentions this in his book, think about the Montgomery bus boycott. That is an example of how you use cancel culture. Think of what Tawana Burke did with the original Me Too. Okay,
Tucker
so think
Carlson
of
should have been
those kinds of
canceled.
things. Oh, he should. He should absolutely be canceled. He should be canceled for a lot of things, but especially now that he is able to manipulate these videos. Yes.
Fox News, but we don't have, it's not being, they took the word, as white people do, and then they shift and flip it and spin it with huge PR companies and huge advertisers on Madison Avenue. They change it. And I'm telling you, I keep saying your advertisers have taken this country and have killed your democracy. PR people and advertisers and those think tanks, they did it. And corporations paid for it. They pay for everything you hear and see. An article, everything. Read the book.
Yes. If you get a chance, get the book, right? See why Elon Musk has his panties in a bunch.
Isn't that the one where he made the comment, doesn't Rolling Stone do anything about music anymore?
Yep.
They don't write about music.
Yeah, I saw and guess what? Well, you know how Rolling Stone responded? They said, yeah, we do cover music, but we also cover other things, like the number of women who complain about being sexually harassed at Tesla. I loved it. It was a great response by Rolling Stone.
Pretty good.
All right. Let's move on. Florida high school student beats teacher unconscious for taking a Nintendo Switch.
Yes. He
Well, I
clearly.
come from a family of teachers, right? My great aunt started teaching in 1958. She still is teaching today. My mother, my sisters, I did for a short time, and I'll tell you something. Um, these My best friend is actually a principal. The thing about me anything watching this, it wasn't just what I was seeing, but it was people saying, "Oh, well, she shouldn't have taken the thing." No, here's the thing: teachers don't make those decisions. School boards make those decisions on what the policies are, what you can and cannot bring to school, and how educators and administrators are supposed to respond when they see you with those things. The teacher just decide that she was going to take his thing away. No, she was told that, guess what? This is part of your job. You take this away, you bring it to the office, you log it in, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes it happened. My daughter had her phone and it fell out her purse, and her teacher took the phone. And so how did I react? My daughter told me what happened, and I said, well, you get it back at the end of the day. I talked to the teacher. I'm like, well, that was an accident. It fell out her backpack, and she was trying to put that in. However, kids know how are you come to school to learn. You don't come to school to play your games. And if you're letting your kid take their stuff out the house to school, well, guess what? It deserves to be taken away, because there's not playtime. And I'm sorry, it bothers me that educators have there's such little respect for them and for what they do, and the fact that a kid thought that they could come beat up a teacher, I promise you that kid's parent has also been disrespectful up in that school.
He was 6'6", 270-pound meathead. So this meathead decides to get angry, and people are like, he's got special needs. In my day, they used to put special needs people in a whole different. Are we going to go back to that? Because we can, and make them be the kids who get ostracized coming off of the bus together, basically sitting at the lunchroom together, because we can go there and we can start raising our children to protect ourselves, because you just don't know what this kid is going to do and spin out. It's very strange. We often, kids sometimes sort it out. When sometimes there's a kid who's by himself, don't always assume everybody's bullying him. There's might be another reason too. I learned that with my daughter. There were some people that I was like, well, he's just end of story. You try to be nice, you try to offer things. But interestingly enough, that wasn't the only video that I saw this weekend. There was, my niece sent me one where that was an African-American kid. Now there was another little white kid who stepped to his teacher in a classroom.
I saw that video
in his face like this, and really was looking for a fight to murder somebody. So my thoughts about children who are like this, I'm of the one strike rule. And I believe the minute that they do it, they're out of school, and it's the parents' responsibility to educate their own kids. Because these kids have shooter energy. They're incel. They're already there. They're there. And they need to put them in a database and keep their names. And they need people to monitor them every single week. And I believe that the parents and their whole families should be distributed to every parent in the school, so that you know what Tommy's mom and dad look like, and his brothers and his sisters, and you know who he is. And I believe that we are coming to that point, because if people don't take care of their kids, you either should lose them or not have them. Because they become society's responsibility, and then everybody's crying because some horrible thing happened. I just think we're not tough enough.
So Black Beauty, though, has a question.
I just want to say this too. Let's be very clear. People were saying, well, but he's special needs. The majority of special needs children are not violent.
They shouldn't be in with the rest of the kids. Sorry.
No, but
I just don't think so.
The majority aren't violent. So that should be said. But even more so, like, I have an aunt that's on the school board. even more so, there are a lot of people who are on school boards, on her school board with her, I'm sure. But there are other school boards, particularly in these red states, where these people haven't even been in a school in God knows how long. None of them have backgrounds in education, but they're making up these rules that put their teachers in danger. They
But I have
really are.
you
It's not
guys
safe
know,
to be a teacher.
it isn't, but I also have a cousin who I've told you has worked with juvenile court. And I have heard some horror stories about children and the parents who are afraid of them, and the parents that are terrified of and they're not special needs. I mean, that's just a label that we throw around too generously. They're brats. They're called spoiled, and it does exist. It's the reason that the kids are like that is because the parents spoiled them. End of story. Sorry, parents, take your medicine. You ruined your kids. And the reality is, there was one case where the kid got mad because his parents wouldn't give him something, and he locked them in their bedroom and he set the house on fire. They broke all their legs jumping out of the window to get saved. And it's just enough is enough. Our society doesn't have the bandwidth for this anymore. And if you're not raising response, because what's going to happen is what I'm about to tell you. Rich people are going to go back to hiring governesses and doing school in a different way, and their private schools or whatever. And poor kids in the public school system, which is going to get very little money, particularly in Florida. You will have your kids sitting next to a monster like that in a classroom with someone who's that disruptive. Special needs or not, it's not acceptable. So then you're going to have community pods where they'll have to raise and educate their kids, because this can't be tolerated. And the minute a kid is like that, then you can only imagine what else they'll give into. These are, they've got to go. They're of no use to society. If I had a dog and he went and bit somebody a couple of times, after a while, they take it away and they do whatever they need to do. Children are the same. And we're at that point. We have had to suffer fools raising children for the longest time. And they're getting worse because mommy and daddy were preoccupied.
So let me jump in here. Black Beauty saying, Aisha, congrats to those wonderful relatives of yours who are still teaching. Aisha, question: the solution for these troubled kids who harm staff? She wants to know what's the solution?
Throw them out of school.
Well, then but the problem is that you throw them out of school, they end up just committing crime.
Then they go to jail. I mean, we can't get rid of jail either.
But here's the thing. We have to remember what's classified as a disability. For some kids, it's mental health.
Mental health.
But let me say this. My first job out of graduate school, I was a mental health therapist in a school, and I had the kids the reason I was there was because of the kids who were behaving like this. And it's also why I did not continue in that field beyond a year. But I remember having a lot of parents who I was 23, 24 at the time. I remember having a lot of parents who just gave up on parenting their kids. For example, I had one kid tried to jump out of a classroom window. And of course, my role, I had to get him committed. So call his mother to come to the hospital and say, hey, your kid tried to harm himself. Could have harmed anybody else too. And his mother told me, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. I'm about to go to the club right now with my friend. And so by law in Tennessee, I was mandated to stay there. I stayed there with him till after 3:30 in the morning until his mother came. Part of the problem we have with these kids is parents. Parents aren't parenting the way that they should. If your child does something wrong, you don't reward them. Teaching your kids to stand up for themselves is a good thing, but are they standing up for themselves because it's just, or are they just bullying their teachers and their staff? And it also doesn't help when you have parents who come and model that behavior. I did work as a communications director a few years ago in a school, and I'm sorry, I'll tell you, there were parents who would come up to the school with all kinds of attitudes. Their kids see this, and those kids ended up interacting with those teachers the same way that their parents did. So that's part of the problem.
I don't think our taxes should pay for public school anymore. I think that people should have to figure out how to take care of that. I don't see the point. I honestly don't care about people's kids. I don't think that they don't care if this generation doesn't care and you haven't made enough money to raise your kids properly and pay for school. Then why should I have to pay for your kids? I did that, been there, done that. And from what I see, why should my taxes go to public school? I don't want to anymore. I'm over it. This is the thanks we get. Kids like this, or military school. Send them somewhere where discipline matters, like making your bed every day, doing things that foster something. But kids have nothing to look forward to. So let's not give them anything to look forward to. Let them try to seek out something and make it happen for themselves. I personally don't want to pay for public school anymore.
But if you look at a state like Florida,
make everybody have to
part
go
of the
for
problem,
public
though. But part of the problem with for example, like a state like Florida, the problem is that they're not investing the money for those resources that they would need because of how their tax structure is. For example, I was looking at my state. The state itself spends close to $20,000 per kid.
People can't afford kids, Aisha.
Here's the thing: each
can't
district then
Why are they
contributes
having
a
them?
certain percentage to the education based upon property taxes. Remember, these red states don't want to have property taxes.
I get it. I get it with the whole. I get the story.
You can't fund those resources.
So what? They don't want to learn. They don't want to learn. Somebody with his Nintendo. The kid was a monster. The teacher was like 5 feet tall. He was a monster. And if I had a gun, somebody would have probably shot him. I mean, and let's not. He's 6'6", 270 pounds. Go for her after he knocked her unconscious. He jumped on top of her, started kicking her in her head. He's going to spend a long time in jail, as he should at this point.
Look,
special needs or not.
Look, I come from a city where we had police officers in schools. When I was in high school, you got into a fight, you got arrested. We had police officers in the school. There are police officers in public schools in some cities here. I'll be honest. It doesn't change. It doesn't change the thing. It doesn't stop the behavior. It really does not. Because I remember
in Florida.
I remember this. Let me tell you this. I remember this. In 1989, 4 police officers came to stop a student from holding the principal, who was like 5'4", and this kid was tall, holding the principal by his neck up against the wall, and the police officers still couldn't stop it. The kid didn't
need an LAPD officer, because if he'd have done it, an LAPD officer, he would. No, that doesn't happen here where I live.
New Haven police officers are very notorious in this state and have a lot of issues.
Let me just jump in here.
I think
people are just tired of them, and people are tired of other people's kids.
I want to jump in here. Got some comments here. Regina's saying, as a former public school teacher, states don't want to pay for appropriate services, accommodations for emotionally disturbed kids. I used to say PINS should mean parents in need of supervision. Good acronym. Black Beauty. Unfortunately, we have to care for all our kids by the grace of God. I could have been one of those kids. It took a village. And then Regina says, and that would include putting kids in separate settings. It's either that or allow them to fall through the cracks and become incarcerated.
Well, that's where they're headed, through the cracks and incarceration, because ain't nobody really, like, you are looking at a country that didn't care about people dying from a pandemic. You think they give a 6'6", 270-pound black kid at 15 who's special needs? Sorry, not really. That ain't in Florida. In Florida, at least try to convey to the boy, this is not the place to be. Because he will meet no compassion. I can tell you that in Florida.
here's the other challenge, particularly with kids who are identified.
He told her
as
he was
special
going to
needs
kill
or with
her.
a disability, and again, special needs and disability don't just refer to learning disabilities. We're also talking about kids who have mental health issues.
But how do we know? They've never been assessed. They're just spoiled brats, some of them.
Well, if they're considered special needs, they have been assessed. But here's the problem.
I don't always believe those things.
But here's the problem. Depending, I know in Connecticut, you cannot kick special needs kids out of school before the age of 21.
Oh, great. So then they become our problem after they're adults. Lucky us.
Now, can they be, now guess what? We also do have and have had schools specifically for kids who have certain issues. A lot, but again, that requires the investment. That's something that we have invested in. Again, a state like Florida, they're not going to invest in it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right. Let's move to our last conversation piece for the evening. The sabotage of Nord Stream pipelines. Jill?
Well, there was a lot of talk this week at the UN Council. There were a few, looky-loos and scaredy cats showing up like, oh my God, we're going to get bombed. And, nuclear power, everything is, because Seymour Hersh, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, wrote an article in the New York Times that basically, to sum it all up, that America was behind the leak. We were told there was a leak with Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1, basically, if you don't know, these are the pipelines that were getting oil, cheap oil and gas, Gazprom from Russia and supplying it to France and Germany, and mainly Germany was, and through that whole way. It was that pipeline. But a lot of people remembered there was a speech that Biden had given and another spokesperson for him that everybody at one point had said, well, the pipeline number 2 isn't going to happen, and we'll make sure it basically doesn't happen. So there's something about the diving team that got sent from Seymour Hersh wrote a whole Substack on it. Now, to read this thing, Seymour has created such an incredibly, crafted letter, a Substack, where you got to pay like $5 a month to read his Substacks. It's hard out here for writers. They, especially Pulitzer Prize winning ones. It's really hard to determine where Seymour's coming from this because he doesn't really mention any evidence other than the divers. And yet, remember, Russia was the ones who they freaked out and accused the Royal Army in the UK, their diving team, for going in and creating the leak. But interestingly enough, even in the midst of all of this, people forget that where this pipe's Nord Stream was incorporated was in Switzerland. And there was some really weird stuff going on. This is my observation. They were laying off people right and left before the pipeline started leaking. So it's so strange to see this kind of circulating. And what's so scary in this environment at the moment is you never really know who is jumping on what bandwagon and who actually got paid to write the articles. Aisha, you know that there have been pharmaceutical companies that will contact you and say, hey, can you write this article? And can it just, you know that it's to favor.
Yeah, it's called branded content. It's called branded content.
I feel like Seymour's stuff is branded content, but for some reason, they've also hired a ton of bots and a ton of people to push this out there and say the media hasn't talked about it. But it could also be a ploy that we know that Putin, because there was a money issue going on right when we had all of our sanctions with Ukraine and this whole pipeline thing happening, I believe that people are like, well, why would Russia have done it to themselves? Well, to make America look bad and to create more doubt and foster more, stuff against the country. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts might be on that. But I know it did create a lot of hoopla.
I'm still reading and learning about it. When you mentioned it, I started reading about it. So like right now, I don't really have an opinion about it. I'm still investigating, which is what I really wish a lot more people would do before they start to talk about topics, is that I'm still trying to sort things out
Right.
on this issue, because nothing is clear. Nothing is
True. Which
clear.
is why
And
I'm
so
actually
it depends on
surprised
what
that
you read.
but that's why I find it more sus that a man of his stature would write the article. Do you understand? Like, I'm kind of like, what's he playing at? Like, he's used the clout of the New York Times and he's kind of pushing, so even they're like going, oh, it's a mystery what happened. But I just feel
New
like
York Times, I got to be honest with you, a lot of like New York Times, like The Hill, things of that nature, they specifically have branded content departments. So the branded content, it could be a pharmaceutical company that's paying for some content to be written about a particular drug, or about a car company. Somebody's hired
I
to
think with
do
this too.
that. So it's very, very possible that that is the truth. Because why? Branded content pays. They will pay more for branded content than people pay for subscriptions to pay the writers. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's true about this, what's not. So that's why I've been reading a bunch of different resources.
It's so true, but there's no real evidence, because there was 300,000 metric tons of methane that was released. So the question is, I mean, who is responsible? Now I just see, like I said, we have just done so much damage to the planet and the people and everybody living in these locations. It's just disgusting to me. But I'm very much more sus about why a Pulitzer Prize winning writer would step into the terrain and try to be the leader of spearheading America blew this up and they need to pay for it. And it's a little bit like, who paid you, Seymour? I know you got a caviar appetite at the moment, it seems like. But why would you step into something where there's no real actual evidence other than talking about the divers in Alabama, this diving unit, when Russia actually had come out and said it was the diving team, they thought, in the UK. So there's a little bit of a game going on. And like I said, people in their political affiliations and money, it's like, I think people are getting paid to just say the crazy.
We're going to have to revisit this, because as more information comes out, we're going to have to revisit. But I noticed Black Beauty is asking if Dr. Vibe's aware that his picture's no longer on the screen. Actually, Dr. Vibe texted me. He had to reboot his laptop, his computer. So he's going to rejoin us. So until he does, Jill, why don't we talk about this Twitter thread that you and I are both doing in about what?
You start.
In 2 weeks. So last year was the 40th anniversary of 1999, Prince's album that Jill was a part of creating in the tour. And so it's part of the Prince Twitter thread series. We've done other ones before. I participated in the one on the family. There was one about Jill Jones's album, and I participated in that one. Jill and I actually interviewed specifically for that. So this one focuses on 1999. And if you don't know, on that album, the song Lady Cab Driver, Jill is Lady Cab Driver. So I'm doing mine on dance music, sex, romance.
Yes, I saw.
And I specifically chose that one because of something I read in an interview that Tina Marie did when she talked about Rick James, and I'm going to talk about this, Rick James stealing Prince's synthesizers that were programmed by Patrice Rushen, and then sent them back with a thank you note. And it's always been funny to me, because if you listen to some of the songs on Street Songs, those synthesizers sound identical to the ones used in 1999 dance
I
music.
think, everybody had those since that time, because it was, everyone was buying the Fairlight and different the same, that's why I think that's with all music. Like, you'll hear a movement of something and everybody's using the same sounds. But I was thinking about Rick the other day, actually, and how smart Rick James was. Like, because it was his birthday like a few weeks ago, and I was just thinking, wow, he was such a intelligent person, and he could hold conversations about anything in the world, pretty much. He was very approachable with those conversations.
Right.
Unlike Prince, who played coy and whatever. Rick was just such an Aquarian. Like this whole era of the change and things happening in our government and policy, he would have loved to see this whole change of the astro planetary, whatever, everything changing. And what I always loved about Rick is that he always got, like, when he would go in the studio, as far as like if he knew he wanted to write a hit, he could do it.
Yeah.
And I really respect that. He knew the business. Like, this is business. I got to write the hit.
Yeah. But did you see the documentary, James?
No.
It's really hard. Really good because it addresses everything you just said about him. I
saw some of it, I believe, but I always find it hard to watch things about people that I have, have a life with, knew some things about. It's strange because some things need to be said in a certain way so other people understand it. But as I've gotten a little older, it's a little harder, a little harder.
So what will your thread be about?
With Lady Cab Driver? I don't know yet. I've got to think about something but you also should say that we're going to be in New York on the 31st
for the 40th anniversary
the Triple Threat Tour.
The Triple Threat Tour the conference. I'm doing mine on Vanity 6 and the Black female sexual aesthetic of the 1980s. Because I just find it interesting how you have these Black female groups or Black-led female groups, and they were all so different. But
look at this fact coming up.
The Vanity 6 really stood out among the rest of them. Tour. And then again with what Rick James tried to do with the Mary Jane girls, but you look at the other groups like Pointer Sisters who were out and things of that nature.
I know everybody goes with Pointer Sisters, but for me, everybody keeps forgetting Bernadette Cooper from Climax. Like,
I also talk about Climax.
Produce this, I
also do talk about Climax in my presentation.
And then there was Tina. Those women strived. They were actual producers, even though Prince put on his thing that we were all producing, and these girls could hold it down. And I think they scared Prince on a certain level. He like, oh my God, these girls came in there. And Bernadette Cooper she definitely created that. The Mary Jane girls are still going, still doing.
Bernadette Cooper was featured in a unsung on
TV absolutely. She's recently. Genius.
Yeah,
she's
when
genius.
They were talking
she's
about
the
rise and fall of Solar Records, and people don't.
And she was always just so nice. She was a nice person. If you saw her out at a club or something, Bernadette was nice.
She's an excellent drummer.
She was a nice girl, like a nice young woman. She was never. Every time she'd be, hey, and she would come over. She was always such a nice human being.
Why don't I just take myself off screen? I don't need to.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's all gay. It's all good. But that's when you have blessed collaborations. I don't even need to be here, and you guys can just roll.
This is like a regular conversation between me and Jill.
Yeah, Jill, you're just hanging out. They're just hanging out. But I do want to come back because there were still some more comments about the education.
Oh,
so
I know.
Black Beauty says, I disagree, Jill. Thank God. Thank God all those who cared didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
And then Regina says they don't want to assess them as ED because they don't want to pay for the interventions. I used to get into wars over this with administration. These kids are being thrown away.
They are. And I'm not
Yeah,
going to
if a kid
deny
has
this one.
identified as special needs, they've had it, and they've got a they've got a plan. But then you have a whole bunch of kids who have not been assessed, and
But it's
part
a
of that
vicious
is, and
circle.
part of that
People
too.
don't eat properly. They get crappy
Yep.
foods. They're horrible diets where they're living. They're not in homes. I am going to say, sad to say, people can't afford to have kids in America. I don't know why they're doing
Well,
it.
let's put it this way: it costs $300,000 to
Yes.
raise a child
Like,
now.
why? If
Look,
you cannot,
that's on the
it's only for the rich.
the
Only rich
conservative
people can
basic
afford to
growth
have kids.
side, okay?
Yeah.
Only rich people
Because it
can
can
afford to
cost
have
upward.
kids here. You are really putting yourself in a real bad situation if you can't afford children here. Don't have them. There's nothing if you can't send, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I know everybody wants that, but maybe the sooner people realize that that little American dream is like an American. That's how they get you in. And, no, it's not good. You can't do it. People can't even afford to buy a house for their kids to live in. They're sleeping under the freeways here.
Yeah.
Why you people having babies? Stop it.
But to Regina's point here about not wanting to pay for the interventions, there's also the issue with parents is that you will have a teacher say, "Hey, I think your kid needs to be assessed or needs service." IEPs are rare; they are rarely accurate. But I think your child needs to be assessed or whatever, and then you will have a parent that will be like, "No, my child's fine. No, your kid's not fine. If they're beating up teachers, they're not fine."
Okay. We're
I
going to
know
end it
Avid
at
Elementary addressed it in one thing where a little girl was pretending to be reading, and the mother came in and she's like, "There's nothing wrong with my child," and she was African. I'm not trying to appropriate. She was just doing her accent, which was like, "There's nothing wrong with my child, blah, blah, blah." And they were like, "She can't read," and it never did get resolved. The parent walked out in this scene. The little girl was still as stupid as she was before, but pretending she could read. And then the teacher had to go and sit with her and start, inspiring her. That's a happy thing. But the reality is, ain't nobody got time for it. You're running from guns in a school. You're running from nasty kids. I say, pack up the public schools, let it go, and let people just raise their kids the way they did in the old days. There's no reason to send them to these institutions anymore so they can get slaughtered like anything. And nobody cares in America anyway. They don't care. So your kids are just basically running like freaking like the Christian in the Coliseum. Every time you send them to school, it's like sending them to the Coliseum when the lions came out. Why would you do that? I don't get it. If you can't afford kids, don't have them.
All right. So last comments we're going to have here. Regina says IEPs are rarely accurate. They tend to underestimate issues. She also says there are also parents there are also parents suing districts for refusing proper services for their kids. And Black Beauty ends off, well, statistics are now showing that since COVID-19, there's been a drop in the sperm count of males and less women are able to conceive.
And thank God, because that's Mother Nature fixing itself again. Mother Nature will always correct itself. Whatever people want to say, she doing it.
And to Regina's point about parents suing districts, think about how long a lawsuit takes. Connecticut is still grappling with the lawsuit from 1989, Chef versus O'Neill. And Milo Chef has long since been out of school.
All right.
But they'll make money.
Last comments, they're done. Of course, money's at the roots. Follow the money. Follow the money. Ladies, as always, thanks for taking the time with and without me to make another epic conversation. And as always, I want to say, if you're willing, and both of you have been very active. All three, LaLa isn't here tonight, very active on Twitter this week, especially back channel.
This weekend for me. During the week, I'm just kind of focused on.
But back channel wise, especially, there was fire going on back channel.
Well, remember, I was sitting in the car in the rain. So I had, and getting from one place to the other, especially to change the tire and all that craziness. And so, but LA is slow on a good day, on a sunny day. So imagine when there's raining, like there were cars floating along the freeway at one point,
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
but we have
Jill.
good conversations in the back, so in case people
Oh,
don't know.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Jill, how can people get in touch with you?
Jill D. Jones on Twitter and Jill Jones Music on Instagram. But beware, I won't be calling y'all ugly. Warned me.
Aisha.
At Aisha Staggers on Twitter. Don't forget to go view that interview with Ernest Owens. You will enjoy it.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And if you want to touch base with me, here are all the different places. The Dr. Vibe Show email the website the drvibeshow.com, email dr period vibe at the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show, Twitter at drvibeshow, and Instagram at the drvibeshow. And that is a wrap. Few last housekeeping things. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, especially if you do it on YouTube. Also hit the notification button so you are told when we do lots of these epic conversations. What else are we going to put up here? If you'd like to promote your business or service on our show, please contact me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And also, you can catch replays of State of Things at the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and the website address, which I gave already. I think we are done. Another spirited conversation. As always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Thank you, everyone, for tolling the little technical challenge I had. But as you see, Aisha and Jill, they really don't need me. So you saw that in evidence this evening. So as always, God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith. While good, we will see you. Well, follow us and you'll find out when we're on. So as always, thanks very much for taking the time. We appreciate it and love you. God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith. And bye-bye.